Hello YouTube, today I want to talk about assumptions. Usually when you meet somebody for the first time, you start forming assumptions or first impressions in your head about what that person may like, whether their ideas or thoughts agree with yours, and whether that person is generally likable or a person you may want to meet later. After you've met that person a couple of times and start getting to know them better, your assumptions start to fade away and you start to fill in the blanks with more concrete information. This is normally how most encounters and conversations with other people work. And in my opinion, assumptions in this case usually work pretty well. They're pretty good guesses to help us process complex information quickly, such as meeting another person for the first time. You quickly put that person into different schemas or groups or areas inside your brain to classify them so you can better relate to them or talk to them based on these things that you've assumed about them. And then if your assumptions happen to be wrong, there usually isn't much lost, or you usually don't feel that much embarrassment because you've just met the person for a first time. Everybody does this, and yet usually isn't any real way to escape it. Assumptions are a normal part of human life, and they do work pretty well. They only become a problem when people start relying on their assumptions, their biases, and their stereotypes to start assuming information about people that they've known for longer than a few weeks or months even. And this is where assumptions start to really piss me off. A lot of people over the course of my lifetime have assumed a lot of different things about me. People I've known for quite a while, and it annoys me. And I don't know why it annoys me so much. I guess I feel that these people that I've known for a long time should know more about me. They should know how I act in particular situations or what I want them to know. They shouldn't just base assumptions on what they think that I'm thinking. And it's so easy for people to do this with almost everybody, even with your own family. Even though it really annoys me, I'm guilty of assumptions, and I've hurt people I didn't want to hurt just because I assumed something about them that wasn't true. And I think in this case, assumptions can be dangerous. Although they may work good enough in other areas of our lives, it's dangerous to use assumptions or impressions or biases or stereotypes or whatever you want to call it when talking to people you've known for a lot longer than a few months. Even then, you're still liable to annoy or hurt people. And the reason it annoys me so much is that these people assume to know what I'm thinking. And that's the thing that nobody can ever know. You cannot fully get into somebody else's mind and know what they're thinking. So the best you can do is make assumptions, and usually they're good enough. Usually you'll get it right. But we tend to see ourselves and our loved ones in a positive light. So when we're looking at other people or talking with other people, we usually base assumptions on what we would think, and what we would think in that situation. We think because we know that person well enough, or we've known that person for long enough, we think that their ideas, conceptions will line up with ours, just because we're assuming that we're right, and you assume that other people will agree with you, when in reality, they're probably not thinking or agreeing on the same lines that you're thinking or agreeing with. And by assuming that that person is thinking the same thing as you, you're treading a very dangerous line. So how do we avoid being caught up in our own assumptions and biases and stereotypes? One of the first ways is to realize when you're doing it. You might not even be verbalizing it or saying it to another person. You might just be thinking it in your mind that that person is thinking or doing the same thing as you. And that's an assumption, and it can be dangerous. You may be right, but you're probably more likely to be wrong. Another good way is that when you find yourself making an assumption about another person, is to stop yourself in your tracks and to try and see what the other person is thinking. You can't do it 100%, but if you try and see from somebody else's perspective, you may be able to stop the amount of assumptions or biases or stereotypes that you start making about other people. And why I think lessening the amount of assumptions we make is important, because it's something that people do a lot. We are constantly making assumptions and presumptions and biases and stereotypes and relying on prior information in our lives to get through the amount of complex information that is presented to us. But when you're talking to someone, or when you're thinking about someone else, or when you're trying to make those quick snap decisions or comments, Just be careful that you're not basing your information of something that you yourself have thought and not something that the other person has said. Just be careful when you're assuming stuff about other people. I'll see you next week. Don't forget to be awesome.